Christian Whiton is the former U.S. State Department senior advisor. He joins us now from Los Angeles. Christian, thank you for being with us. If the Jordanians do ramp up their military effort here, if they do go after ISIS in any kind of significant way, isn't that what ISIS wants?
Well, I think ISIS was probably trying to probe them and see if they had resolve. I mean, ISIS and its terror, even though it seems insane to us and it seems like it'll only create more resolve in their opponents, you know, that's not always the case. And if you look at their march into Iraq and the terror tactics they used, it actually did work in intimidating a lot of Sunnis and actually leading to ISIS successes. However, if the Jordanians do react, you know, it's important to keep in mind that their ability to do so is limited. They have a lot of problems on their hands. They have more than 1 million refugees already inside their borders from the Syrian civil war, and they cannot single-handedly defeat ISIS. That requires not only the participation of other Arab states, but frankly, the involvement of the United States beyond what we've seen over the last 5 months of what's been a fairly ineffective military operation.
Jordan has problems. It also has divisions within its own countries. It seems there are those who support the U.S.-led coalition and those who don't. So where do those fault lines lie, I guess, in the country?
Well, with any of these countries, you know, Jordan is mostly Sunni, something like 95%, but nonetheless, you know, it looks like early indications are that there is a tremendous amount of resolve to fight against ISIS. There are sympathizers within Jordan of the Muslim Brotherhood, which isn't exactly ISIS, but is still an Islamist organization, an organization that wants to get rid of the monarchy, that wants to replace monarchies or democracies with theocracies. So there are going to be some fellow travelers inside Jordan that nonetheless are still sympathetic to ISIS. But, you know, this is a government that I think is showing resolve, and by acting quickly and still within, incidentally, the rule of law. These 2 people executed had due process, were found guilty, were on death row. I think this is the decisive action will probably keep Jordan together.
Actually, that's a very good point. They were on death row. They were set for execution. They just did it 24 hours after that video was released, I guess is the pertinent point here. A lot of people are now saying that the brutality of ISIS, upping themselves with new and gruesome ways to shock the world, this is going to be their undoing, essentially, that they will lose support across the Arab world. Do you agree with that assessment?
No, unfortunately I don't. I think this is the main benefit of ISIS is its magnet effect. You have jihadists from as far away as Indonesia, from across North Africa, from sub-Saharan Africa, making the journey, also from the West, incidentally, making the journey to fight with ISIS. And so far they've had a fair amount of military success. They reach a point of natural exhaustion, which may just be temporary, unfortunately, a point of natural exhaustion when they got to the brink in Iraq of Shiite territory. They went through much of the Sunni territory, but they are still regrouping. They are still effectively fighting Iraq. Unfortunately, they are taking ground in Syria, in contrast to what, incidentally, the Pentagon said. The Pentagon putting a happy face on progress so far, but aside from the lifting of the siege of Kobani, it's hard to find progress in the last 5 months of U.S.-led military operations against ISIS. So unfortunately, I think their brutality, while it will cause resistance among some, will also make them an attractive place to go for many jihadists.
And that is the question. Who looks at that video of the pilot being burned alive in a cage and says, I want a part of that, I want to join those guys? How does that work as recruitment?
Yeah, it's sort of the sick cycle of recruitment. But frankly, it's something that we need to get our arms around, because it's not just ISIS, it's al-Qaeda, it's Ansar al-Sharia, it's al-Shabaab that hit us in Libya, and all of these groups. It looks completely insane. I mean, who could look at life under the Taliban in Afghanistan and think, yes, that is the model country and civilization that I want to be a part of? Nonetheless, jihadism and radical Islam does speak to a minority, but a nonetheless significant number of disgruntled people who are on the outskirts of, you know, whatever their society they're in, and it's something we have to address. We have to combat this, and our allies in this are actually Muslims, people who can go and say that this is not the way Muslims should act, people who will essentially turn on these other more radical people. And, you know, part of this is fighting back against ISIS, but part of it is drawing back and frankly thinking more about radical Islam.
Yeah, it's a big, complicated, scary picture. Christian Whiton there in Los Angeles, former U.S. State Department advisor. Thanks for being with us, Christian.